It was good to see you in my hometown for Polaris.
It was good to be there. It was fantastic. It was a nice little trip. I came over to the UK just for a really flying visit. It was an in and out kind of job. The whole purpose of the trip was basically to come and see squads, and it was fantastic. So I'm
Hmm.
really glad that I made it over for it because it was a fantastic show. And I think it lived up to what everybody was hoping for. Certainly what I was hoping for with the squad's finale, the end of that sort of year-long thing that you've been running, the two teams in the final. But I want to know, how did you feel about it?
It's always a very mixed bag after a show. It's like a mixture of satisfaction and kind of tiredness, but then also, like, I think, as I've mentioned before, like, we're our number one worst critics. So the second the show is over, we're trying to think about how to improve things for the next one. But in a pure kind of, from a purely spectator point of view, I'd say it was awesome. Yeah, I mean, we had planned to do this year of squads, and we knew what the framework was, but it wasn't until we kind of sat down there that night we realized that it was all coming to a head. It was a big show for a number of reasons. It was the culmination of a year of squads, which was really cool, and we had two title fights, which was Fionn Margot and Suleme Helena. It was also Fion's kind of last match with us for the foreseeable future, because the UFC would like her to focus on the contract that she has with them, with UFC BJJ. And it was our last show on Fight Pass. So in terms of like the amount of things kind of coming to a head, it was pretty big, which is why it felt like quite a big occasion.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot going on there, and then there was the big reveal as well that this was the last event on Fight Pass. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But before we do, let's just maybe talk about some of the action, because you mentioned purely from a spectator point of view, and that is quite refreshing for me, actually. That is the role that I was there in
Mm.
on Saturday night. So I was purely a spectator, which is really unusual for me because it's rare that I actually go to any kind of jiu-jitsu event just without having anything to do other than sit back and watch. It's a very different experience because usually I'm running around, I'm preparing, I'm working, I'm trying to do 100 different things. And it was great to be able to just turn up, watch some amazing matches and go home. And in the middle of all that as well, catch up with lots of people. I was really like, thank you, by the way, for the free tickets. That was very kind of you, and very nice seats. I was sat in front of you and your missus, and that was that was really fun, and really close to the stage, so I could literally hear people breathing and panting while they were competing. That was kind of fun. What I really enjoyed is the squads format, right? And I've talked about this a million times about how I love jiu-jitsu because the freedom and the flexibility to create all these kind of different rule sets, and you can play with the format as much as you like. Every show has got a different spin. There's there are very few kind of what people consider to be unified rules in jiu-jitsu, but there's a lot of team events and they're all a bit different, whether it's a straight duel, whether it's a quintet winner stays on, or whether it's the Polaris squads twist, which I've said again and again is so much fun. But I think this was my favorite squads event to date. It really was, because it was wild. And there were just so many good matches. So I want to ask with you, number one, who stood out to you the most? Like, who was the athlete that just blew you away?
I guess it has to be Mateus, right? He tore his bicep a few months ago, had a big operation, and has been kind of coming back to full strength. And he was like, "I'm pretty sure I'm going to be ready for squads finals," and then just came on the mat and just like, massive respect to Team Asia and Oceania, but yeah, Mateus came on and just annihilated a bunch of people. Yeah, it was cool. That was really cool.
So I asked you this during the event because, squads has been running for a fair few years now. And even though you do have the famous memory of a goldfish, like you like to say every single episode, you can't remember anything that's happened. But I did ask you, like, what is the sort of the longest run that anybody's had in a squads competition? Like the number of unbroken matches that they've done back to back. And you said that Margot had a pretty strong run in the female squads earlier this year, but you think that Mateus winning 5 in a row in the first half of this event, that's probably one of the longest we've ever seen, right?
Yeah, I think Margot and Mateus both got 5, but Mateus got a bunch of subs. I think 4 out of 5 were subs.
That is right.
I guess he just about gets the edge there.
Wow, incredible. Yeah. So just to recap, Mateus had 9 matches in total. He won 5 in a row in the first half. And of those 9 matches, he went 8-1. He only lost 1 decision right at the end of that first half when he started to slow down because he'd just been on the mat for so long. He had 4 submission wins in total in those 8 matches. And this is a really interesting stat that I pulled out because I was looking at the results last night. Mateus beat every member of Team Asia at least once, except for Lucas Cannard, because they never ended up facing off. That's pretty phenomenal, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm going to test your knowledge here. So he lost 1 match, and that was a decision to Mohammed. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, he'd already subbed Mohammed. He stayed on for another 2 matches, and then his 6th final match of that first half, was Mohammed came back in pretty fresh and beat him by decision.
I mean, I would almost say if you were going to give another MVP, I don't know, on the other team, like I thought Tarza was really impressive. I thought he'd actually decisioned Mateus. I felt like he was all over him, and Mateus was starting to get tired. And he was very disappointed when Mateus got his arm raised. And I was a little bit surprised as well because Tarza like notoriously has a really good gas tank, and I felt like that was his strength in this. He also tired out Owen. I mean, not just him, but the fact that Owen had been out for a while. But also Mohammed, because like we know how good he is, largely due to our semi-anonymous matchmaker from Ireland who was telling us this guy's fucking amazing, you need to get him on, and then we brought him on and he beat J-Rod. So we know how good he is, but I'm just hoping that more people realize how good he is. I mean, the fact that he teleported to Santeri's back and choked him out, like, I honestly don't remember the last time I saw Santeri tap. He's probably going to be really pissed off that I even brought it up, but that was amazing from Mohammed. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, there were some amazing performances on both teams, and of course, Europe kind of ran away with it. I think the final score was 35-12 in favor of Europe. And I remember during the event, you were kind of getting a little bit worried in the opening half because obviously, you have friends and sponsored athletes on both sides and you want a good show. But at the same time, you were kind of a little bit worried that it was going to be a blowout and that Europe were just going to run away with it. But I think the final score, 35-12, it's very high scoring in favor of Europe. But Asia they did themselves well. I think they can go out with it. Obviously disappointed they didn't get the results, but they were proud they had some good performances. But I'm just going to run through then some of the standout performances from Europe because I want to give these guys the credit. Like Mateus, like I said, he had 9 matches. Owen O'Flanagan had 6 matches in total for Team Europe. He went 4-2 and he won every match of those 4. He won them all by submission, which I think is really, really impressive because we know that Owen's also a finisher. And the 2 that he lost, interestingly, he lost both times to Tarza, once by decision and then once with a submission. But this is a really interesting thing about Owen. Man, he submitted Lucas Cannard twice with the same submission. He hit him both times with an ankle lock. Now, It's really cool, right? Because Lucas is an amazing leg locker. And I think back to his match, for example, with Chris Wojcik at CJI2, that when you get 2 really well-known leg lockers facing off, sometimes they end up canceling each other out. So it speaks volumes about Owen for him to be able to tap out an amazing leg locker like Lucas twice with the same freaking submission. That's pretty special.
Yeah, crazy. It almost feels like it's like MMA math. Like somehow the way those 2 came together, it's going to come out in Owen's favor, and until Lucas figures out another crazy counter like he did to Taylor.
Exactly. And then Lucas on the other side, on Team Asia, he had 6 matches. He had them tied for the most matches with Mohammed. They both had 6. Lucas went 3-3, one submission win, excuse me, and 2 submission losses. Mohammed, though, I think this is a really interesting stat. He had 6 matches, and every match that he had was really cool. You know, he's a gamer. He's the kind of guy. But the stats kind of paint an interesting picture because he is kill or be killed. Because he had 6 matches, he won 2, including that submission over Santeri that you said, and yet every match that he lost, he was submitted. That's also a crazy statistic because it's such a high level tournament. But just going back on Europe, Joseph had 5 matches, 3-2. And both of his losses were to Lucas by decision. So again, it's that, like you say, that sort of that jiu-jitsu math, isn't it? That is weird that Owen could face off Lucas twice and submit him both times. And then Joseph, who people often refer to as one of the best in the world at his weight class, and everybody knows how good he is, can lose both times to Lucas by decision. It's crazy how these things work out in squads, right?
It's interesting how consistent it is. Yeah. So you would assume that if they fought like 10 times that you'd probably get the same result, like 8 out of 10 or something.
Styles really do make matches in jiu-jitsu. And I think that's highlighted here when you see it in squads. Taylor Perman had 3 matches for Team Europe. He went 2-1, had some good matches, but subbed Mohammed and then subbed Hedge, but lost to Lucas via leg lock. Owen and Santeri was sat on the bench most of it. They only had 2 matches each. They both went 1-1. And then on the other side, Taza was also very active for Team Asia. He had 5 matches in total. He went 3-2. He didn't get subbed at all, which is kind of what you expect for Taza, because I'm just thinking in the entire time that I've been watching Taza, I honestly cannot actually remember ever seeing him getting tapped out.
His escapes are world class, his defense and his escapes. And he's also puts on a sort of frantic pace. I think people find it hard to mount any kind of decisive offense against his style. Yeah. And I know he's working on an escapes instructional, so look out for that.
Well, speaking about that, there was this really interesting escape that he was doing against Mateus, because in their first match, that Mateus won by decision. Mateus managed to bolo to his back pretty early in that match, and then he kind of slapped on the body triangle. And Taza did something I've never seen anybody else do, and it wasn't just a one-off. He went to this about 4 or 5 times in the same match. That he did this weird thing of we're having Mateus on his back in a body triangle. He kind of grand beat out from underneath and was right up on his neck and his shoulders. And Mateus was kind of in this weird position where he had the body triangle locked, but he was no longer in an attacking position for the head or neck. And I really would love to actually get inside Taza's head and find out what he was doing here, because I've never, ever seen anybody do this particular counter or this particular movement to that position. And, well, if he has an escapes DVD coming out, and hopefully he'll explain it a bit more, because I was just intrigued that he kept doing this, and Mateus was able to retain control but wasn't able to attack. It was very odd. That's the best way I can describe it.
Taza's really good at. I need to go back and rewatch that, because I couldn't watch the whole show. You know, obviously up and down and sort of in and out a little bit. But he's really good at finding different angles, I suppose, like that are beneficial for him and bad for the other person. Like he can roll in a certain way or position his body in a certain way. Yeah, he's just really good, basically.
Yeah, they all were. I mean, it was fantastic. Mateus, obviously, he got the, what did you call it? MVP, man of the match?
MVG,
right?
Isn't it? Most valuable grappler.
There you go, MVG. Yeah, he definitely deserved it. It was a fantastic show. It was really, really entertaining. There was some amazing matches.
Like obviously Team Asia Oceania probably not feeling great afterwards, but I think on an individual level, like obviously all of them are basically world-class athletes. They've all had like amazing matches in the past. It was just tough against such an overpowered sort of Team Europe. I mean, there was a few comments about that, but the thing is, like, as I said before, that Team Europe we could have made that team a year or two ago. It would have been a fairly similar membership group. A fairly similar group of people. It's more like they just got better and better as the year has gone on, and like it's just hard. It's from a show perspective, it's amazing because we have this elite team. Then on like a personal level, I don't like to see people that I have relationships with kind of getting beaten. But that's one of the stresses of like running a show. But I did want to say that I felt like all of that team looked really good right up until the moments that they didn't. Like Tommy, massively undersized, just like going out there multiple times against like, Joseph Chen looked like double the size of him. But making like really nice movements, really nice defenses, just basically handling everything until the moment that it became too much, and then like either getting tapped or losing the position. But I don't think anyone should feel too down,
I agree. Yeah. I think they all had their moments, and definitely, the squads format puts you under so much pressure, as you mentioned in a previous episode, that some of these guys find out the hard way that you're probably going to lose at some point. It's very difficult to stay unbeaten in this format. Everybody's going to hit that wall or hit a certain member of the opposite team who, has the edge over them. So, and about that, I mean, just the overall stats as well, because I'm a big numbers guy when it comes to events, that there were 27 matches in total. And this is something that you never know with squads, how many matches they're going to be, right? Because the 2 45-minute halves, if they all go to a decision, there's going to be less matches. If there's a lot of quick subs, then there'll be more. So there were 27 matches in total, 14 in the first half, 13 in the second. And in total, there were 16 submissions. That's a 59% submission rate. Now, that is very good, because if you look at any pro show, any grappling event, a good submission rate is around 30% of all matches end by submission. So for 60% of matches to end by submission, I mean, say what you want about, like you say, how the team stacked up against each other, but just purely from a spectator's point of view, man, it is so entertaining. It really is. To be sat there as a spectator, and especially alongside my wife, who is a one stripe white belt, and has only been getting into jiu-jitsu like with that kind of eye this year. She was loving it, and it's great because somebody like myself who's been in it for so long can appreciate it. But then also the more casuals or the people newer to the sport, they can just sit back and watch it and also appreciate the action, right?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, people are really cynical online for whatever reason. Everyone's just moaning all the time. Oh, jiu-jitsu will never be a spectator sport. And I'm like, well, that's funny because there's like 1,000 people in here screaming their heads off. And I know for a fact that tens of thousands of people are watching it at home. So it looks like it is kind of getting there,
Yes, absolutely. Well, the most negative voices are always the loudest online. So be careful how much attention you pay to internet comments.
I mean, also just looking at, the another strength of squads, apart from the fact that, it's fairly entertaining. And then even though jiu-jitsu itself is a kind of complex sport, the rule system that we've like encased it in and the presentation of it is easy. You've got one team versus the other team and they're racking up points and that's it. And any time you can look at the scoreboard and see who's winning, So I feel like that might help. Like our goal isn't to have every single person in the world watching jiu-jitsu, but at the very least, we need the people that practice it watching it, and that's millions of people. So, but I was just looking through another strength of the squads format. Like the list of matches here is insane. Like any one of those you would enjoy as a super fight. I mean, you started with Canard versus Joseph Chen, which is a mad fight. Shazinski, Tarza, Ono, Flanagan. These are all like crazy matches that could have been at the top of a super fight card. So, but we had
could cost you a lot of money as a promoter if you were to
27
try and make it.
Yeah, don't tell the guys that, because if you break it down into like, well, Mateus had 9 matches, so yeah, it's good value.
You got your money's worth out of him, that's for sure. Yeah,
got that bit. No.
And then the super fights as well were also really good. 2 very different super fights, of course. Helena, she beat Suleme, and she got her revenge in that one, right?
Yeah, really good super fights. I did a bit of training with Margot. We've met each other many times. And sometimes, you know, when you see athletes and they're training, maybe they have like a small group of trusted partners, especially if it's before the event. And, you know, us as the Polaris team, we actually love doing jiu-jitsu as well as, you know, everything else that we do. So if we have a chance to train with the guys, we will. But sometimes you have to be a bit sensitive, like maybe they don't want to, or maybe they don't feel comfortable or whatever. But
you don't want to be that guy who injures somebody right before a big show, right?
Yeah. I would never forgive myself. But we had a little quiet kind of training session at the Ippon where I train at. It was kind of unofficial, and she came with her partner, and we did a few rounds, and it was really fun. Like, I got to feel what a really high level, very technical athlete felt like, and I really enjoyed it, and I think they enjoyed it as well. You know, they sort of ended up trusting us, so we did quite a few rounds, and, you know, she said, oh, it'd be great to come back again. But so going into it, like, I had a feel. Actually, I've never trained with Fionn, but I've heard, you know, from people that have, just how good she is. So I was really curious what was going to happen, and it kind of went down like I thought it would, which was Fionn's pressure just trying to crack Margot's super technical guard. And although Margot's not as physically imposing as Fionn, she's an athlete still. So.
And you said that Margot actually weighed in more than Fionn as well, because if you looked at the two of them next to each other, like, you would say that Fionn was the bigger athlete.
Yeah, just in my head, she felt much bigger. But then when they faced off, Margot was taller, and then on the scale, she was nearly a kilo heavier. I think Fionn maybe cut weight a little bit, so she might have bounced back up a little bit. But yeah, it was by no means like any kind of physical mismatch at all. And then you saw that in the match. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great match. It was a really technical match because, like you said, it was that clash of styles. You know, you had somebody who's predominantly a top player, and Fionn putting on all kinds of pressure. I mean, I'm in love with her knee cut and the way that she's just able to stay so heavy on top of somebody. It was, I wish I had that kind of passing pressure. I really do.
Yeah.
And against Margot's pretty much impassable guard. And there have been some really good clips, actually. There's a guy who posts lots and lots of breakdowns on Instagram. I'm a big fan of Bondi Ass, if I hope I'm saying that correct. And man, he posted some clips of like Margot's guard retention, the way she's like bringing the sort of the far side leg up and over the top. And it's that kind of stuff that I nerd out on. Maybe it's like the micro details that, you know, only sort of like, you know, black belts see compared to like the white belts and blue belts. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I actually learned a lot from watching Margot compete against Fionn. Yeah,
same when even when we were training, she was doing lots of things that you might not think about, but were really effective. Just really good jiu-jitsu, really, really good.
And then Helena versus Sula May. So Sula had that really, really, highlight reel moment when they last faced off in that short match at the previous squads. And she managed to jump over the guard into mount. And, you know, it was kind of a holy shit moment. But then, man, Helena has just got so much momentum at the moment. And what did she do? She came out, pulled guard, just got to the back and choked her out. It was just like it was just completely one-sided, and she just shut down Sula May and got the sub. And we all kind of expect Helena to go home with her hand raised, but it was a statement. It was that kind of statement of Helena was kind of letting everybody know. She's like, no, I'm number one in the world. And I keep watching her, and every time I think, surely somebody's going to, you know, find a sort of a crack in that game somehow. And she's just getting better and better, isn't she?
Yeah, it's definitely an intimidating athlete for sure. She wanted revenge, and she just kind of seemed to single-mindedly go after that. I do respect Sula May. I mean, she wrote a good post on Instagram. She said that Helena got to her strong position before Sula had a chance to get to her strong position, which I guess is what happened in the last match, except it was in Sula May's favor. But also, you know, she's kind of admitted that she was kind of pretty intimidated because, Helena is a lot more active than her, I guess, on the super fight scene. You know, she's just all in on this like competition career, which, I mean, Sula May takes it incredibly seriously as well. But Helena's like on a show every week, you know, so she said she was intimidated, but she went for it, and got nothing but respect for her for that.
Yeah, Helena is incredibly active, and she never seems to take her foot off the gas. She competed on squads on November 1st. On November 14th, she's going to be out in Abu Dhabi at ADXC, which I'm going to be at. And then I forget exactly which event, but I think it's like 2 weeks later, she's competing again. Is it BJJ Stars I think she's competing at?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she is just nonstop. And those are huge matches in, 1 minute she's in the States, then she's in the UK, then it's Abu Dhabi, then Brazil, then back to the States. She just is competing at every opportunity. And I mean,
that's the energy of a teenager, I guess.
And it's how you just, establish yourself as number one in the world. There's no argument about it, right?
And very supportive parents that go everywhere with her. They're always in a kind of little trio.
Actually, my wife asked me about that because she was paying attention, like who's in the corner for these athletes and stuff, and she's like, Helena doesn't have a coach, and I was like, no, she's got her parents. They go with her to every single match. Those guys are always there, and also Helena doesn't need somebody giving her technical advice mid-match. She knows what to do. She
can probably hear Danaher's voice in her head the whole time anyway, and I'm sure he corners her in America, but yeah, she seems to do okay when she travels. Yeah.
We talked a little about the overall feelings of the event, but just sat next to you and seeing you, you were up and down, you were kind of floating, but there were some moments you appeared a little bit stressed, and then you would be excited, and then you would kind of calm down, and then you would be stressed again. So I mean, you've got an amazing team at Polaris, but it can't be an easy job, sort of having put so much work into an event like that, and then have to sit there and hope that everything goes well.
Yes, it's kind of unbelievably stressful, actually. But we do have a good team. We're lucky in that most of the people that are kind of working for us now have been working for us for most of the time, and it's kind of good and bad, because it's good in a way because everybody knows exactly what they, for the most part, exactly what they need to be doing. They almost don't need to be told. Right. But then the bad part is...
You're not micromanaging, are you?
No. But the bad part is if one of them is ill or they can't make it, then somebody else has to come in, and they don't have the intuitive understanding that those guys had, because they've been doing it for years and years and years. So the group that we have is really good. But I wanted to say that 10 years I think Polaris has been going now, and it's only in the last couple of years that I've become a little bit less hands-on, kind of intentionally. Because, we've done it all, and it's been unbelievably stressful. In the beginning, we would do everything from booking the flights, booking the hotels, picking up athletes from the airport, and then physically lugging mats around before the show, after the show. We used to spend hours sticking sponsor stickers on the mats, and with a hairdryer, and just everything you could possibly imagine around the show we were doing, including me. And I kind of feel like I've done my the hard graft stuff. I don't really want to do it anymore. I don't know if some other members of the team might be annoyed at me, but I just can't do it anymore, But then so I sort of take a role of I used to be the floor manager as well, by the way, with the headphones on and listening to the truck and cueing the people and everything. I've done everything. But I kind of go and sit in the crowd and absorb what's going on. And that is actually really stressful because, pool, for example, must be 1,000 people in the auditorium. And I can feel to a certain extent what everybody is feeling. So if the match is a little bit quiet, I'll start to get stressed because I can tell that people are getting restless. Or, if the decision is weird, I'm going to be stressed because everyone's in the crowd going, what the fuck, what's happening there? If I notice a little mistake on the broadcast, maybe even no one else notices it, that's really stressful. And then, I have to, not just me, but other executive members of the team, we have to be talking to athletes, sponsors. You might meet one athlete and they are the happiest they've ever been in their career because they just came onto Polaris and they submitted someone, and they want you to join in that feeling of happiness, and you're like, yeah, this is amazing. 10 seconds later, you're talking to somebody who it was their live stream to get on Polaris and they lost, and they are so depressed, and then you have to then modify your behavior to, sympathize with them, and then you're feeling sad as well. And it is like changing every 5 seconds. And then there's friends and family and people around. It's pretty mentally exhausting, but
Yeah.
and then also being, as I mentioned in the beginning, super self-critical. So even if it went amazing, already I'm thinking like, right, what are we going to do better next time? So I might drink a beer to take the edge off. It's not exactly a relaxing experience.
You're getting pulled in a lot of different directions, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
I definitely noticed, though, I arrive and I've known you guys for a long time, and I know, like you say, the executive team, the sort of the directors behind Polaris, and you definitely all have now sort of moved into sort of your own different roles within the show, and it definitely seems that you're able to kind of just take that step back and let the event run itself, and no less stressful, I imagine, but at the same
Yeah.
time a little easier because you're not running around and doing everything yourself, which has to be so much work. So overall feelings, like you say, the event, I think it was a great success. You seem pretty
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things you're looking to improve. The response was really good. People
Yes.
seemed really happy with the event. And then there was a big announcement as well at Polaris that this was the last Polaris event on UFC Fight Pass. And there was a big announcement that came out on the following Monday, announcing that Polaris is going to be on FloGrappling starting in 2026. So that's kind of the news that you've been hinting at and alluding to over the last couple of months, that there was going to be a big announcement. How big announcement do you think that is for the show itself?
I think it's really big for us. We've spoken to Fight Pass this week. There's no hard feelings at all. And we already told them what was coming. They're very supportive. They're just focused on their own thing, which is understandable, So we could feel that might happen. So we kind of got ahead of it a little bit. But they sent us a very nice email. And it's been a good run. We've had some of the most watched shows ever on their network, apart from UFC property, has been Polaris's. So
Wow.
We've had a good run there, and they've been instrumental in kind of growing the show. But I'm super excited to move to Flow, because Flow has a hardcore audience of mega jiu-jitsu fans. And that is, I feel like not to, obviously the comparison is slightly inaccurate, but it feels a little bit like we are Pride. We're existing outside of the kind of main thing, which is what's happening in America, but doing well. And it's an exciting prospect because the kind of community, America is important, right? In lots of things. It's very instrumental in the jiu-jitsu scene as well. So it's nice that, having existed and kind of thrived outside of that for many years, it's going to be really interesting to bring that into the mainstream narrative, because Flow has a good hold on a lot of properties. So basically the news, the events, it's all centered around Flow at the moment. So it's going to be a nice feeling to kind of insert our show into that. And then athletes too are excited, because it's going to open up opportunities for them in America, and kind of a lot of them have the goal of going to America. So that's pretty exciting. I don't know. There's loads of stuff I can talk about. We should go through it in detail.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about what you said there about how there's a kind of almost a feeling like you were on the outside looking in for a while, even though you were doing extremely well. You were existing almost like in a parallel dimension. Because I've heard this comment many times, and sometimes it's just said a matter of fact. Sometimes it's said with a little bit of resentment, but it's almost like if it doesn't happen on Flow, it's almost like it never happened at all for some events. Because if you're not on Flow, then you're not getting the same level of social media support, news coverage, reporting of results, that kind of thing. And for events who are out there doing their own thing, and sometimes they're doing very well, it's quite disheartening not to have access to that. And then many people will complain and say, well, why hasn't Flow done anything to talk about this particular event that isn't on Flow? And having being part of that organization and knowing obviously how it works internally, the simple answer is, well, number one, you're not going to see ESPN promoting an event that takes place on a rival network. And that's the best way I can describe it with UFC Fight Pass and Flow. That Flow were never going to promote or talk about, and unless something really monumental happened, maybe talk about it after the fact. But they're going to be reluctant about talking about an event that's happened on a rival network. And then number two is the question about resources, because even though FloGrappling is part of Flow Sports, which is by this point in time, it's a pretty large corporation, and it does have literally hundreds of people working for them. The actual grappling team is not that big. And in terms of sheer resources and human resources and the amount of work that they physically can do, when they have obligations to existing partners, whether it is ADCC, IBJJF, or their own properties like Who's Number One, or then partners such as BJJ Stars or any of these other events that they work with, well, obviously they have to give priority to those events over an event that is happening on a third-party platform. So that's kind of a little bit as to why many of these events don't often get that coverage that they're looking for on something.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It does make sense. And, you just have to take that step back and look at it objectively as to why that is the case. But Flow are definitely, they are picking up a lot more events I've noticed over the last couple of months. They've always been aggressively trying to acquire events and to get new events streaming on their platform. Polaris by far is like the biggest event that they've signed in years. It feels like, this is huge because like you say, you guys have been grinding for 10 years at this point. And I think you worked with Flow from the very, very beginning. There was maybe Polaris 2 was on Flow. And then you were pay-per-view for a while after that. And then you've been with Fight Pass for probably about 8 years at this point, I would say.
Think so. Since Polaris 5, since Dylan Dennis versus Gary Tonon.
Wow. So there you go. That is a long time. But then about Fight Pass, and I'm glad to hear that there's no hard feelings. And it's interesting, though, because I look at Fight Pass and I look what's going on in the industry. And I wonder whether they sort of passed on the opportunity to work with you from here on out, because we've seen the investment they've been making in UFC BJJ this year. And I also look at Fight Pass and I look at what's going on with the Paramount deal in the US. And I look at what they're doing with the other third-party events that they work with all over the world. Because Polaris was not the only grappling event on Fight Pass. Of course, there's EBI. They have Fury Grappling. Fury is an MMA show in the US, which also has occasionally, a couple of times a year, it has grappling events. They work with grappling events in Brazil, like this BJJ Clubs, which is a team tournament or a team format that we've never talked about. It's more like a dual format. And I see UFC BJJ it appears to becoming their main focus this year. And I can only imagine they're going to invest more and more into that in the coming year. We've already heard that they have possibly 10 to 12 events lined up for next year, possibly even more. But it does feel like UFC, for whatever reasons, whether it is the Paramount deal, whether it is Fight Pass, we've heard rumors that it could possibly be winding up. We've heard that Fight Pass could possibly be coming to an end. We've already seen that territories such as Brazil and Australia, Fight Pass is actually going to stop working at the end of this calendar year, and they're going to move to different platforms. So, we'll see whether there is anything left on Fight Pass in 2026 and whether it's all going to be moving elsewhere. So it's curious to look at it from an industry point of view.
Yeah, I think kind of when we were talking to Fight Pass, because obviously, we would have, if nothing was changing, we would have stayed with them, I guess, because they were, always a very solid partner for us. But it will be interesting to see what kind of happens to the whole network. Yeah, the UFC signing that massive deal. I mean, maybe everything is suddenly on Paramount Plus, and UFC BJJ is currently streaming on YouTube all the time, right? Like they haven't charged anything for that yet. So yeah, I got no clue what they're going to do from next year. It'll be interesting to see, but I'm happy that there's no hard feelings. And, the guys running it are pretty passionate about jiu-jitsu, and, I guess, fans of Polaris as well. They've kind of watched all the shows we've done, obviously, and always given us good feedback. So yeah, let's see.
It's nice to hear. Nice to hear that they've been supportive and remain so. So what does that future look like then in 2026?
We're going to do 2 extra shows, which is exciting. I mean, it's one of the things we've wanted to do forever is increase the kind of frequency of shows, because it allows you to like tell more stories, make more matches. The year of squads, it was slightly stressful and kind of expensive. And we were thinking maybe we would park squads for a while, but like you said, it's so exciting. And if you have the choice between a squads event and, I don't know, a super fight show, the super fights can be really good, but I think everyone is feeling more and more, the super fight needs a reason to exist. It needs a bit of a narrative, it needs a story, it needs some beef. It can't just be 2 people that are good at jiu-jitsu going against each other, because, you know, that's happening every weekend. So if we're going to do super fights, we're going to think very deeply about the matches that we can make and the people in them. But immediately it started to make sense that why not do a squads event and we'll challenge Who's Number One. You know, Who's Number One is like the flagship FloGrappling show. We've got this killer Team Europe that we would kind of rebrand as Team Polaris. There might be a couple of shuffles here and there for super fights, but that idea kind of took hold quite quickly, and now it looks like that might be the first show. Kind of bring in the best guys that Flo can bring us to represent Who's Number One, and we'll send out our best team, and we're obviously going to completely crush them, and it'll be really exciting.
I'd like to see that. I had a thought a couple of days ago, actually. The fact that Polaris is now working with Flo, and of course, not the only big event to be on Flo. You know, have to think of this BJJ Stars, and there's, you know, there are other events out there as well. And I started thinking whether there's any possibility or any opportunity in the future for, let's say, a Polaris champion, a super fight champion, to, let's say, go to Who's Number One and put their Polaris belt on the line. So, for example, a Polaris champion goes up against a Who's Number One champion in effect, what is a title unification fight. And
that sounds
the winner
super
of that
exciting.
would then, you know, be the sort of the double champion. And
Yeah.
it's almost like thinking about how boxing does this, right? Because you'll have, I don't know, like, let's say WBA champion and the WBF champion, and then this guy will come in with his 4 title belts of the different organizations he's the champion, and put it up against the 2 belts that this other guy has got from a different organization, and then walk out with all of them. I'm wondering, is that something that you would be open to with Polaris in the future, or even to have a WNO champion come over to you and put their belt on the line on a Polaris event?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the most exciting possibilities that we can do next year. And, you know, Ricardo was messaging me the other day. You can imagine if somebody wins ADCC, Who's Number One, Polaris, BJJ Stars, unifies all those belts. They are legit like the best person in the world at that weight, you know. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I was only thinking in terms of unification, like, but now that I think about it, I guess if, let's say, we sent someone over and they lost, yeah, they lose that belt. That belt's staying in America. Yeah.
But then you'd have the opportunity to bring that guy over to Polaris, because he is also the Polaris champion. So he would have to compete for you at some point.
No, it's so exciting. It like instantly makes super fights more interesting. And I feel like, you know, one of the things that Polaris has been good at is finding European talent and developing it. So obviously we are not out there competing and, you know, risking injury and putting in all the physical work, but we are definitely creating a platform for them to go out and do that. And I like to think that maybe some of them feel some pride to represent not only like the part of the world that we're from, but also the show.
Right.
And like, having spoken to Team Europe, they seem pumped to represent Polaris and prove that, you know, while we've been out here kind of outside of the American bubble, we haven't just been messing around. You know, we've been making good grapplers. So
yeah, definitely have. I love the fact that this is a possibility now that you've said it, you know, because I was just thinking about this title unification possibility, and you know, the fact that you said you're open to it is so cool, because there are so many kind of linear champions in the world of jiu-jitsu, right? And we don't have that one
Yes.
big juggernaut in jiu-jitsu like we do in MMA, whereas like the UFC champion is champion, and any other title holder in any other organization doesn't really mean anything. But it does in jiu-jitsu, you know? And I think that it would be so cool to actually see legit champions go against each other. That would be a lot
Yeah.
of fun indeed.
Who is the champion at 77 kilo in Flow is Mika, is that right? No.
Yeah, and I think he's actually also because it's 170 pounds, so he's also the 185 champion as well.
Yeah, he's going to want to go up. But yeah, there's so many cool matches we can do. So many cool matches. Yeah, excited about it.
So the next Polaris event is on January 31st, is that correct?
Yep. We are returning to the valleys in Wales, which wasn't the original plan, but we can make a really good show there. You know, like we always do, we make this little bubble, and then inside the bubble, it looks incredible, even though we're in the deepest, darkest Wales. But
hey, don't talk shit about the valleys. That's where I'm from. No, it's actually great because that venue is literally like a 15-minute drive from my dad's house. So I'm not unhappy about that fact. Yeah, I know some of the athletes. The last time you were there, they were a little disappointed because they were like, "There's nothing here."
It's just a small town, you know. Like even I think the most hilarious thing I heard was Kynan Duarte was complaining about the quality of the carbohydrates on offer.
Well, I'll take him to a nice slap-up Sunday lunch next time he's over. I'll show him the good food. But you know, the one thing that is really good though about that region is there's a massive community of jiu-jitsu practitioners in South Wales.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely no problem whatsoever for you guys to sell tickets, and that's really what matters, isn't it?
No, we do good there, and it's not far from, like, Bristol is big as well. A good community there. Welsh people always show up, but I think we will, because like at the end, in the kind of Polaris, in the 3 days leading up, they only really need to be at the venue once for the show, so we'll probably put everyone up in a slightly bigger town or city, half an hour away, and then stick them on the coach. They come and do the show, then they go back. So then they'll have a few creature comforts around them. Yeah,
it is a little bit out of the way, that's for sure. Speaking of people coming in for these events, you mentioned about how people come over from neighboring towns and cities and drive over for a Polaris event. Quick shout out to I hope I say this correctly now, but the Dutch guys from Kaizen Grappling. I didn't even realize who they were. They came up and introduced themselves to me, and I realized, oh yeah, we've been chatting on Instagram for many months or even a couple of years at this point. But Jörn, I think it's sort of spelled Jerome, but he introduced himself to me, and his name is Jörn, I think it is. And really, really nice guys from Kaizen, and they told me that they drove like 9 hours from Holland all the way over to Poole, took the ferry and everything, and they're like, oh yeah, we're driving back tonight, 9 hours. I was like, wow,
crazy
that's
guys.
commitment. That's really cool.
I was the same. I hadn't met them in person until that night, but we'd been speaking on Zoom and things, and they were definitely waving at me for quite a while, and I was just going, and then I suddenly tweaked who they were, and I felt like an idiot. But there's possibilities that, because the story of Kaizen, as far as I understand it, is that they were putting on really good shows in Holland, and they had a kind of internal dispute, and unfortunately everything was on hold. It's just real serendipitous coincidence. The guy Keith emailed us just to say, look, big fans. He was asking about Scramble and asking about Polaris, and it just came at the perfect time because we want to increase the amount of shows we're doing. We want to do grassroots stuff. We have 10 years of history. So while I might not want to go to a leisure center and put the mats on the floor and run a competition, somebody else might want to do it on our behalf and trade off the fact that we have a 10-year history and a really good reputation in the European community. So there's been some discussions about people in other territories like helping us to run shows. So that's what the chat was about. And we were like, just come and watch if you want. And they were like, okay, just jump in the car, 9 hours. Yeah, that's the story.
And you've teased it a couple of times that there's the potential of European events, or elsewhere in Europe, we should say, not just in the UK. But So many events to look forward to next year. You're going to be busy.
Very busy, yeah. Let's see. I mean, there might be. I've only ever missed, I think, one Polaris. But let's see. If we do 6 next year and 8 the year after, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to every one, but yeah.
Wow.
That's the plan.
That is a lot. That is a lot. So speaking of missing, unfortunately, we are going to miss an episode next week because both of us will be traveling. We both travel early next week, and you have got a trip to Japan and South Korea. I myself will be in the UAE. I'm flying into Abu Dhabi for an event there. So tell me about the Japan South Korea trip. What have you got lined up?
So Mateus and Camille, the leg lock camp boys, asked for my help last year to get a leg lock camp going in Japan, and we did that. We did one at Imanari's gym. It was really good, really good. I mean, his gym, like most gyms in Tokyo, are not that big, so it's not like Scramble Camp was with like over 100 people on the mat. But it's Imanari's place. You know, it's pretty iconic, and you know he has a lovely gym. It took him a long time to open a gym, but he has one now,
Really?
and it's he was, dude. That guy was grinding. I met up with him a few times. He would like teach somewhere at 6 a.m. one side of Tokyo. Then he'd go somewhere else for a lunchtime class in someone else's gym. Then he'd be like an hour on the train for someone else's gym. There'd be like 3 people there in the gi. Every day he was, and for whatever reason, it took him that long. And then suddenly he was like, oh, I'm opening a gym. And it's really nice, like clean, good showers, male and female changing. It's easy to get to. It's near Shinjuku, which is like a major metropolitan area.
It is nice, but it's funny you mentioned the showers because when I went there with the B team guys for that quintet a couple of years ago, one of the things that Nicky Rod said that he liked about it was apparently really good water pressure in the showers. So
good showers, No, it's like
everybody likes the showers at Imanari's gym.
I mean, the Japanese people don't tend to do things by halves. Like I lost track of the amount of times that there's like athletes that I follow, and then they announce that they're opening a gym, and then the next thing you see is detailed architectural renderings, and it's like they're doing things properly over there. Basically, they plan everything. So lovely gym. Last year, big success. It was those guys' first time in Japan. Really enjoyed it. So obviously we set it up for this one, and then I like to go because there'll be so many Scramble people there. We sponsor Minari, we sponsor Mateus and Camille. We have Billy, who runs Scramble in Japan. He's going to come. So it's, like Scramble is forever linked with Japan. So it's a good opportunity to get out there, take some photos, do some content.
Are you staying in Tokyo this time, or?
Yeah. Basically based around Imanari's gym because we'll be there twice a day. And then we have a distributor or an official partner in South Korea called Philip, who's been doing an amazing job of running Scramble over there to the point where we're almost not involved, but in a good way. He's autonomous. He's sponsoring loads of people. He's doing all the graphics for social media. He's, putting in regular orders. He's on top of all the new releases. He's just doing an amazing job. And I've never actually met him in person. So I said, I'm going to be there. It's a very short hop from Tokyo to Seoul. So I said, can I come over? And he was like, yeah. So he's helped me arrange a bunch of stuff, including one of our open mats, which is called Solid Ground. We've done them in a few places, but this is the first one over there. I'm really looking forward to it because I think he's arranged all of the athletes that he sponsors are going to be there. I'll be there, he'll be there, and then hopefully just a bunch of, jiu-jitsu people. And
you've said you've never been to South Korea, right?
No, I've been to Busan, which is a city in the south, because back in the day, to change from one visa to another in Japan, you have to leave the country. And where I was living in Fukuoka is like a short ferry to Busan. So I took the ferry, walked around, ate some nice food, changed my visa, came back same day. And then Seoul, I've only ever transited through. So I'm really looking forward to visiting. And it's like when you're visiting a place and the guy is based there and they know everything about it, you're going to have a good time. So he's sorted out
you'll
the
get
hotels.
the local experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. And I love Korean food. So
yeah, I've never been, but I've got a few friends who have been to South Korea, and number one, they've all said that they love it. Number one, they all said that they had a really, really good time there. But I find it really interesting also because there is a really healthy jiu-jitsu scene in South Korea, and
Mhm.
it's like they have a really strong community, but it is a little bit insular. And we
Mm.
on the outside don't get a lot of information about what's going on in Korea unless you're somehow connected to it. And then vice versa, we don't see a ton of Koreans coming out and competing in other events around the world. I can only think of like really a handful of guys. We used to see some high level black belts like Wanky Chai. He used to
That's
come
what I
out
was
and
going to say.
compete.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the big IBJJF events and stuff. And then there was really just a handful of others. But by all accounts, the level of jiu-jitsu in South Korea is really, really high. Like those guys apparently are very, very tough. They're very, very
Mm.
technical. There's quite a thriving local scene. But what I've also heard is that jiu-jitsu is quite exclusive. Apparently, it's quite expensive to train
Mm.
in Korea. It's not like you can just walk into any old gym like you can, in Europe or the States and find a place and pay like 150 bucks a month to train or something like that. It's like, no. Like each gym, like the minimum you're going to pay to train jiu-jitsu is like 300 a month or up. And they're
Really?
quite sort of, yeah, quite luxurious facilities. And
They all
yeah, I've
look
heard
nice.
that
The
it's
gyms look very nice.
exactly. Yeah, I've heard that the scene
Um,
is really, really strong out there. So I'll be interested to hear your take on it when you
yeah.
get back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it. A couple of the Korean team did come to the last leg lock camp because it's an easy flight from Seoul to Japan, and I did meet them. And you're right, they are very tough and very good at jiu-jitsu. So I think there's quite a lot of exchange between Korea and other Asian nations. Like I'm sure like I know for a fact there's a bunch of Japanese branded gyms like Triforce operating in South Korea, and also Parestra. So
Yeah,
between
there's a
those
Carpe
guys,
Diem out there as well, I think.
yeah. So there's a lot of crossover that way. Just doesn't end up coming this way, to America or Europe.
Right.
But yeah, I'm very excited to go there.
What am I doing in Abu Dhabi? I am
Yeah.
going out for an ADXC event, which is their comeback event, because they only did 2 events so far this year. Actually, they did have a calendar of a ton of events, but that kind of got put into disarray. So they did 2 events earlier this year. They did one in Paris that I went to, and that was in April. And then a couple months later, they did one in Moscow, which I did not go to. And
Hmm.
then they were supposed to have other events in Brazil and Europe. And this is the first event that they're going to be doing since that Moscow event. Because originally they had, I think it was 8 events scheduled this year. And they told me, oh, we've already got a kind of an idea of the locations going in 2026. And they had around about 8 to 9 events lined up for next year as well. But for some reason or another, that didn't materialize. So now they're coming back and they're going to be hosting an event in Al Ain, which is near Abu Dhabi. It's about an hour drive away from Abu Dhabi, and it's not like the glitz and glamour of Dubai or Abu Dhabi. It's much more of a smaller city. It's only really known because that's where the founding father of Abu Dhabi was born. The Sheikh
Okay.
Mohammed was actually born there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going back. There's a couple of good matches on there. Helena's competing on there. Gabriel Souza versus Juan Alvarenga. That's going to be a good match. And then
Is
there's
Helena
some.
fighting the Salah Simola? Is that on that show?
Yes, she's fighting the girl from Finland. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
that's
actually a
cool.
good match. Yeah, I like it. So
Yeah,
there's a
the
lot of
Finnish are
locals.
incredible.
Yes, they are actually. Finland's always been kind of a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to jiu-jitsu. They've
Mm.
always done very, very well for themselves. But there's a lot of locals. There's a lot of Brazilians based in the Middle East who are competing, and then some other nationalities as well. So it'll be fun. I always enjoy that event. It's high production value, and they treat us really well. And then I'm hopeful
Yeah.
that they're going to come back in force next year, because next year is looking big. I was talking to the guys from Quintet in the UAE this week, and they're already lining up lots of events for next year, lots of different locations. So fingers crossed, we'll see Quintet back. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of Polaris. I'm sure we'll see lots of Who's Number One. We'll see lots of ADXC, and then of
Damn.
course next year is the big one, the ADCC year, right? 2026 is
Oh yeah, in
ADCC
Poland.
again.
Damn.
So
I need to get my
yeah,
tickets. I'll try and blag some.
yeah, sure. Pull in a few favors. I'm sure you can get one or two.
Come on, we know a few people, surely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's it from us for this week. And like we said, no episode next week, but we'll be back. And Matt will bring lots of stories back from his Asian trip, I'm sure. So we'll have plenty of things to talk about in our next episode. But don't forget to, if you're watching this on YouTube, give it a like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what you thought, and any comments about what we discussed, if you agree or disagree. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure to leave a review as well and a rating. That would be really helpful as well. And send us a message on social media. We love to chat with you guys. We get some great feedback. And it was really, really nice at Polaris last weekend that I must have had 6 or 7 different people come up to me, and I'm sure you had a few as well, telling us personally how much they enjoyed the podcast. That was really, really nice. Thank you so much for the feedback. Thank you for the support. It really means a lot. You know, this is a little bit of a hobby project for both of us, but it's really nice when you guys actually come up to us and tell us that you've been enjoying it. So we're not just screaming into the void.
Oh, good. Yeah, nice one, Hal. Thanks, man.
See you next time.